Hello guys, in this video I'm going to be speaking about the spiritual bypass, also referred to as over-spiritualizing situations, experiences, our emotions. And this is a very common challenge for light workers, for those of you who are awakening into spirituality, because our very definition of spirituality, and this is something that I'm going to be speaking about throughout this series of the spiritual matrix, our very definition of spirituality is something that we adopt from others. And so we adopt from society, we adopt from our environment, we adopt from looking at the world, and the world is changing. So initially, we're coming out of a world where spirituality has been quite polarized in many ways. From the east to the west, spirituality is in many ways polarized. And when it comes to the idea of what it means to be spiritual, largely it's related on an unconscious level. It's like an archetype, an unconscious archetype. That spirituality is where you are happy and loving and nice and connected and in a state of peace. Now, obviously these are spiritual states. And in these states, yes, we have access and are very to spirit and very connected in that. And when we're in so-called negative states, such as anger and fear, we're not as connected to spirit. Yet, are these states unspiritual? And this is where we have to really challenge and open up to the idea of what it means to be spiritual. Because let's put it in another way. Let us say that you are spiritual no matter what. You are spirit inhabiting a body here, incarnated on planet Earth, experiencing a life, a human life. And so as we look at it in this way, you are always spiritual. The universe doesn't judge you for having an argument with your mum or dad, for doing something wrong. All of these are human ideas of categorization of what is right and what is wrong. Again, coming down to duality, right? So this is about us categorizing what is spiritual, what is unspiritual, what is right, what is wrong. And so because that's going on unconsciously, and our strive to be more spiritual, and our strive to be more connected, and our strive to be more enlightened behind all of that, and to be more in tune, which are incredible qualities and to have as a drive. We want to be more connected because obviously it serves us. It serves us to work through these issues of our pain and the so-called negative emotions. And I'm saying so-called negative emotions because there's a way of looking at them differently as we start working with the shadow. And as you start to accept the shadow, because depending on where you're at, you're going to be along this range of how you feel about the light and the dark. Initially, what usually happens is as we start on this path, or even before, we feel that the dark is something that is wrong. The dark, which is the aspects of ourselves which holds all of the negative emotions, anger, fear, jealousy, envy, manipulation. We see them all as wrong, so we repress them. And as we start to work spiritually, we start to want to turn everything into light. We start to want to get into healing. Yet healing initially begins with this idea of fixing. So we look at ourselves and we say, look, I want to change this state into a more loving, positive state, which again is beautiful. But then as we start working on it, we may realize that as we're doing that, we may be judging those original states. And if we get into that, if we are in the process of judging that original state, we get caught in a loop of our own healing, because you can never move into another state if you're disliking another aspect of yourself, which is what happens through this. So as we deny the dark still by wanting to turn all of that into light, we are forever tied to it, because all aspects want you to love them unconditionally. Unconditional love means loving all aspects of yourself unconditionally. All aspects of yourself unconditionally. This involves the ego, this involves all of the dark side. And so over-spiritualizing our emotions and the spiritual bypass is where we bypass our human emotions. This is where we bypass what we're really feeling and go to this state of consciousness where we think, this is what I'm supposed to be feeling. this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you've had an argument with a friend, and in that moment there was a lot of well, you didn't really know what you were feeling, because this is what usually happens with a spiritual bypass. You're not really aware of what we're feeling in the moment. But a lot of things happen, and then you left that argument, that situation, and you look back on it and you think, okay, now I understand why I created it. I understand why they created it. I understand why they were feeling what they were going through. And we go up to this high state where we look at everything from above, the higher self point of view. We realize the perfection of all things, and we forgive our friend for what's happened, and then we move along in our lives. And then the next day, suddenly this growing feeling starts to birth, this resentment, right? And then the next time we see them, we're kind of trying to hold that back and deal with it, and trying to see everything from that point of view, constantly battling this kind of dark emotion that's coming out, this negative emotion, and trying to deal with them and that situation. And then after a few weeks, you can't help it, you just burst out and everything comes out, right? And you just start having a full-on argument with this friend. So what's happening here is that this spiritual bypass of the original emotion, which here resentment births from anger. It births from an energy of anger, which anger is really about, usually about a state where we want to express something about ourselves that we haven't expressed before, that we want to relay to somebody, some kind of truth about ourselves, but we feel guilty for it. We feel that it's wrong because it's coming in with that form of anger, and it's coming to do with ourselves. So because we over-spiritualize and start looking at everything from every point of view, we have literally we've bypassed the human state of emotion and gone up to that hyper-spiritual state. So what this means effectively is that, are you honouring the emotions that you're feeling? And this is why I will say human first, spiritual second. Because this helps understand what you're feeling in each moment, in each situation, in each experience that you're going through. It helps understand, what am I honestly feeling? And this all comes down to being authentic. Being authentic means being real with your emotions and not judging them for being there. Because if they are being felt, they are real. We can't change that. They're there. So it's about honouring that. It's honouring what you're feeling and taking space from that situation to really feel it. The more extreme you are with the spiritual bypass, which I believe most of us are, and this isn't just about being in the spiritual field because our society is repressing emotions, but spirituality the spiritual matrix, as we enter it, can actually enforce that in a stronger way. It's about honouring that and finding ways to deliver that without directing at that individual, obviously. Because what happens is that we start to become passive aggressive, which is a common theme in spiritual circles, because passive aggressive is where you don't really want to share what you're feeling because it seems unspiritual or wrong, but then start to that energy can't disappear, you see, so it will come through in other ways. It comes under the surface, which is what passive aggressive nature is. So it can come through manipulatively, or it can come through in terms of control, and it can just come through in other ways. You know, somebody gets somebody else may feel it. You know, it can even be directed to other people. That what we're feeling towards one person can get directed to, you know, a few other people, even because we haven't had that conversation with them. We haven't communicated with them because we haven't even been taught how to do this. We have to develop this ourselves, and it's not easy. It's not easy to communicate how we feel authentically when it comes to these kinds of emotions. Yeah, we all have to try if we want to move through them. And we will create again and again these situations. So the spiritual bypass and over-spiritualizing is about acknowledging that state of consciousness which understands everything. If you're able to even go there, then that's going to happen anyway. You don't need to worry about that. Let your spirit take care of that, because your spirit gets it. If you're able to just jump up there all the time and see the perfection of every situation, then that's going to happen. That's already happening there. So why not be here with your emotions and feel them and understand why they're being felt? Because emotions such as anger are actually incredible emotions. They should say that they're usually a form of self-preservation. They're saying, look, what about me? Because usually that comes up when we're thinking about others a lot, or we haven't acknowledged what we truly want. Anger also can relate to expressing something that we've been holding within, that we think, oh, I don't need to say that to anybody else or that person. But then we develop this anger, because really what the anger also is very intelligent. It understands that that person may need to hear it for their truth, for their development, for their growth. This is why communication is so important. It's not just about us. That other individual in that co-creation wants to hear something that can shift them. So we're just finding ways to do it more compassionately, how we speak. Initially, it's going to be messy. Most of my situations where I have built up things, it's just messy. That's the way it is. But it has to come out. It has to be expressed. If I want to be authentic and real with those emotions,